Well, hello everyone. We're going to kick off in a few minutes. Just waiting for people to now come into the room. We're currently coming into the room. Now, what I'd like to do is if everyone can hear and see, and everything looks fine, which would be good, then perhaps you can just type a little chat in your chat box that you can hear, and perhaps tell me what you can see on the screen. That would be wonderful. While you're doing that, I'll just explain the webinar software that we use, which is called Webinar Jam, relies very heavily on Google Hangouts and YouTube. And Google and new things in the last couple of weeks, which has meant that we've had to jump through some hoops, but I believe we have jumped through those hoops now, and everything should be fine. So if you can just type away in your chat box, just to let me know that you can hear me. And playback disabled. Thank you, Van. I can see that. You have to watch on YouTube. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that, Van. This is the problem that they had, and they told me that we'd fixed it. If you do, there's a little button. If you just click on that, you can watch it on YouTube. It should not in any way, shape or form detract from your experience. So I do apologise about that. As I say, they had told me that that had been fixed. But something, the way that YouTube interacts with Google Hangouts, that's meant that that's happened. Can anyone else out there see or hear me? If Van can hear me, then I presume that the rest of you all can hear me as well. I'll just have a look. So big shout out to May, Kerry, Lydia, Owen, Christine, Stephanie, you've all joined us in the room. And Kerry can hear us. Kerry, what can you see on your screen? Christine can hear but can't see. Christine, you might have a little, if it's dark and there's a little tiny thing that says click on this and watch on YouTube. If you can do that, as I say, it shouldn't detract from your experience of the webinar. It just means that you're going to watch it on YouTube rather than watch it through the link that we gave to you. So Kerry, you've clicked on the link, and you should be up and running. We'll just wait a couple, maybe one more minute while other people sort out their links before we kick off. Now this webinar is going to be recorded, or it is recording as we speak. It's the way that the system works, and there'll be definitely a replay available for you, which will be available via YouTube as well. So if you do need to leave, or you do need to, or you can't quite get your experience right for you right now, and I apologise for that. Oh, Christine, great. I can see that that's working for you. That's wonderful. We will, you'll be able to watch it on the replay as well. So it's now 10 o'clock, so I believe my countdown typer would have said that it's time to start the webinar. So in deference to all of your time, I will do that indeed. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar that we're putting on, which is called Xero versus MYOB, How and When to Move to Xero. I'd like to have a shout out to Kerry, who's in the control booth today. Kerry's my practice manager. She's also my wife. So I'm really appreciating that she's doing the controlling of the webinar today, while I can just focus on doing the webinar itself. So without further ado, let's go on to the webinar. Right. Okay, so this webinar is really for people who are deciding to come out of the dark ages in relation to their accounting software and embrace what's known as cloud accounting. So if you're currently using MYOB desktop, you could be using another desktop system like QuickBooks as well. Specifically, I'm focusing this webinar around MYOB, but if you're using any sort of legacy system, well, we call it legacy because it might be old, that where you might be feeling that you or your bookkeeper's in that caveman and things are getting a little bit difficult, this webinar is for you. So if you've already moved to the cloud or you're already using Xero, then sure, you might get something out of the webinar, but it's really aimed at those people who are using desktop versions of MYOB and for them to see what's involved with moving to Xero and deciding whether the time is right. So who am I to be telling you all of this? Well, my name's Scott Treverthen. That's a picture of me, perhaps when I'd had a haircut. I won't bore you with how I look right at the moment, but similar. So I'm a chartered accountant. I've got over 25 years of IT systems experience. So back in the days when we were cutting our teeth as accountants, IT systems were everything, whether they were mainframe systems or whether they were desktop systems or other software bits and pieces. Accountants were really IT experts as well. That's changed a little bit in the last few years, but what I'm saying is I've had over 25 years of IT implementation experience. So I feel I'm qualified to talk to you guys about the kind of software and also about the kind of highs and lows that you can get when you're implementing that, the change in your accounting systems. We've been with Xero since the very beginning, and a massive shout out to one of our clients, bookkeepers actually, who turned us on to Xero right at the very beginning, before anyone had ever heard of Xero, before they started doing any advertising. We had this bookkeeper say, hey, I've decided to use this system called Xero. Can you guys handle it? And we're like, oh, God, what is this? So we looked at it and we fell in love at first sight because it was everything that we'd been looking for. It didn't have payroll. It didn't have assets. It didn't have inventory. So it had a few things in it. But what it did have was the ability to link your bank account. And I'll go through that in a bit longer. But suffice to say, we've been with Xero right from the very beginning of Xero. The first Christmas party we had with Xero, there was only 20 people in there. Now they're getting around about 2,000 to 3,000 people at their conferences every year. So exciting times. Just prior to moving to Xero, we were experts in MYOB. So we used MYOB extensively throughout our firm. So most of our clients were on MYOB. We use MYOB from our back-end systems, and I'll explain what that means a little bit later. But we're but we've been experts in MYOB. We've been using that system, so we really knew how to use it quite well. So that's what I'm saying in terms of why you should listen to me. Well, I've got experience across both of the things, and I believe that Xero is certainly the way to go. But we understand your pain points with staying with MYOB, and also your pain points that you could have when you're moving to Xero as well. So this is my team. We're an accounting firm, chartered accounting firm based in East Malvern in Melbourne, Australia. This is my current team, looking all very dapper, although I'm not in that picture. I don't think that was a personal thing. We've also got a lovely team in Cebu. There you go. There's me on the very far left. This is just taken on a recent trip to Cebu, and this is my current team in Cebu, and we're growing that team. That's in the Philippines. We're growing that team very big as well. So those guys are mostly fully qualified accountants. They have a kind of a different system over there. They're CPAs instead of chartered, but they're fully qualified accountants and fantastic, and we love them to death. So Scott Partners is a small business specialist firm. So we specialise in professional services firms, but we have clients across every range of industry. So we've been able to see what sort of accounting systems they're using and able to advise them on, most of them we've moved over to Xero. Xero is our recommended system, and I'll explain why that's important to you guys very soon, because if you should, and exactly why you should actually use this system that your accountant recommends. So Xero is our recommended system. We use Xero all across our firm, so that's replaced MYOB totally. In fact, we've got rid of our server because we're completely cloud-based, and again, don't worry, I'll explain what that means, but we use Xero across all of our firms. So not only the Xero that you see as a client, that your bookkeeper might see, but also another version which helps us to run our practice, another version which helps us to do work papers and checklists. So we're fully integrated with the Xero world. we're highly experienced in moving people from MYOB desktop to Xero. So we can really help that journey because we've seen it. We've been doing it for a number of years now, and we've experienced the terrible things. And that's what this is. The subtitle of this webinar is "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Moving to Xero," because we've experienced the bad and the ugly, and it's cost us clients and it's cost us a lot of money. So we want to give that experience to you guys just to make sure that you're aware, and if you're talking to your accountants, to make them aware of what's involved in relation to moving from MYOB desktop to Xero. So again, this is what we're talking about. It's the MYOB desktop version, it's not MYOB Live. Now, MYOB has, in true MYOB form, followed the market leader Xero and produced their own cloud-based accounting version. So what's going to this, as I say, this webinar is really talking about moving from MYOB desktop versions into MYOB Live. Now, I just had a look at the stats from a place called JetConvert, and JetConvert do conversions of MYOB desktop to Xero, and they have been absolutely inundated with people moving from MYOB desktop to Xero in the last 6 weeks. So they do that for free. Massive caveats, which is why you really need to listen to this webinar about things that can go wrong. But just saying, from a statistical perspective, they are saying or reporting that they're moving hundreds, if not thousands, of people from MYOB desktop to Xero right now. But if you've already moved from MYOB desktop to MYOB Live, then this might not be so relevant for you, because some of the things I'll be talking about is what is cloud accounting, how that impacts on your life, etc. Still encourage you to watch it though. So, big caveat here is you should use the system your accountant recommends. It's easier for them to give you support that you need if their back end matches the software. Now, there are a lot of accountants out there that will say, oh, we don't care, we're completely agnostic in terms of the type of software that you use. But they're being disingenuous to you when they say that, because sure, every accountant, and we're no exception, we can handle, if you insist on staying with MYOB or you insist on staying with QuickBooks, we can absolutely do that, but we can't really give you the support that you need for your software. We don't have any ongoing expertise because we're not using it constantly. And what we need to do from our back-end side of things is transfer your information from your MYOB or your QuickBooks system, or it could be a SASAO, another different type of system, onto our Xero backend system so that we can produce the reports and tax returns that we need to do. All of this takes more time. All of this means it costs you more money. So really, my big push for you guys is that you really should use the system that your accountant recommends. And that means, of course, that if you like your system more than you like your accountant, well, it's time to change accountants, guys, because honestly, you know, your accountant's there to support your small business, to support you in what you do. And if your accountant's not doing that, if the accountant's just dictating to you that, you know, you want to do this and you want to do that, and because it makes it easier for them, or you think that you've got so much invested in your current system that you don't agree with your accountant, then, you know, it might be time to change accountants, to find an accountant that supports your system. So we're very big on that. We'd say to potential new clients that come along to us and they say, hey, I use MYOB, I love MYOB, I've got a whole bunch of systems in MYOB, all my people are trained in MYOB, I've got no interest in changing. And we say, you know what, as much as, you know, we would love to have you as a client, I think you'd be better served by going to someone who's supported and had the back end from MYOB, because we're going to be slower for you, we're not going to be as responsive to you, we're not going to be able to treat you the way that you need to be treated. So that's my caveat, that, you know, if you like your system more than your accountant, time to change accountants, because they're not adding the value to your business, clearly. Okay, so generally speaking, if I can put this in a nutshell, what the whole fuss is about, it's really about the easy transmission of data. So you know that when you're with MYOB, you need to put a MYOB desktop versions, you need to put a backup in place on a little drive, and you need to somehow get that to your accountant. Now, if you're advanced, you might have a VPN that your accountant can log in through, but that's not very stable, and MYOB certainly don't recommend that. But you usually have a little USB disk, or even a CD if you burned that. and you get that to your accountant some way. Usually you either post it or you take it down to your accountant with a whole bunch of other records, and then they'll load it up and check your backup, and they'll work on it. What this is really all about is changing from that system and getting the data from you to your accountant or bookkeeper a lot easier. So that's the nutshell of what the fuss is all about. And I'll explain why that is really, really helpful to you coming up very soon. Now, of course, there's giveaways. Absolutely, there's giveaways. Now, we'll give you a free checklist on how you can determine whether you're suited to move from Xero to MYOB Desktop. We'll do that at the end of this webinar. If you're listening to a replay, sure, you can fast forward and see it, but there's a link that will get you to copy down, and then you can just download your free checklist, which will really help you understand whether you're ready to move. Wait, there's more. No steak knives, but this is a limited offer, and it really is. Coming at the end of the webinar again, we're going to give you a limited offer on how you can get a free conversion to Xero. Now, big deal, you might be saying, I can go on to JetConvert or one of the other sites around and get a free conversion to Xero any day. There's a lot more involved, and that's what this webinar is really trying to educate you guys on. There's a lot more involved than just getting your data changed from one system to the next. But we'll show you how you can get one absolutely free, a perfectly done conversion for you by us. And that's coming at the end of the webinar. So, cloud accounting, what is it? Okay, it's about, as I said before, the easier transmission of information between your accountant, your bookkeeper, and you. So everything's stored in the cloud, which means it's a Xero servers, and they're located in a number of different locations. For Xero, usually in Australia, but it depends on what country that you're operating out of. And so all your data is kept on that server, and you can access that information just going through your internet. You can access your accounts. There's one set of books, so we don't have, you know, a backup, MYOB backup going to your accountant, who then works on it, going to your bookkeeper, who then works on it, which either means that you're offline for a number of weeks, because that's probably the quickest that your accountant and bookkeeper can do your work for you, or alternatively, your bookkeeper has to actually come in and work on your accounts into your office themselves. So in cloud accounting, there's just one set of books. Everyone works on the same file at the same time. And you can see changes in real time as well. So it's really opened up the world of communication between all of your advisors that need to work on your software. There's no software to update or install. You don't receive CDs and you have to upload and back up and roll over and roll forward and all that sort of thing. None of that. All the software is updated automatically by Xero. And usually at times where you're not going to be using it, so you don't see it, and they'll explain to you what the changes are that they've done, and they do them periodically. If they're going to be something that's actually going to cause any problems for you, then they'll advise you, but that just doesn't happen either. And as I said before, you can access your accounting software or any cloud-based software anywhere on the internet through your browser. It doesn't matter what browser you've got, whether you're using your phone or whether you're using a friend's computer or the library computer, you can access your accounting records, and nothing gets stored on that computer that you're accessing it through. It's just purely looking at something on the internet. And because of the speed of internet now, it doesn't mean that you click and then a second later you see the change. Everything happens real time. Now, security is always an issue when we talk about cloud. It's like, well, you know, if my information's not stored on my desktop, you know, is it going to be secure? So what we want to say is, and we're no expert. I mean, we're an accounting firm with IT experience, but we're no experts on IT security. But what we can say is what Xero tell us is that they have bank level security. So just as your banking information gets kept in the cloud, I don't know if everyone thought that they still had manual ledger books in their branches. They don't. Everything gets stored in the cloud on bank level servers, and they've got bank level security. So theoretically, no one can come in and steal your data or look at your data unless you say so. Now, there's multiple backups as well. So, you know, if you've got your one file on your desktop that your bookkeeper comes in and uses, and then you spill some coffee on the hard drive and things get wiped and you can't restore the backup, then you could be in real trouble. Xero servers have there's multiple servers in multiple locations, which means they always have your data available. I mean, never say never, says the Titanic, but there's virtually no chance that you will ever lose your data when they're stored on a Xero cloud-based server. And I'm putting little brackets here, or your accountant, because sometimes your accountant's controlling your user access, and that's only because that's what you want. We recommend that our clients control the access. But you or your accountant controls who gets to look at it, and that includes Xero. If Xero need to come in for support, then you have to give permission for that. Otherwise, they can't see anything. Everything's encrypted, coded. They can't see your information. So it's secure, and you get to control who sees your information. Okay, so desktop versus cloud. So once again, I just want to say MYOB have followed Xero into the cloud, and this is not, they don't just have their desktop version. In fact, they want to actively manage everyone to go to their cloud-based versions. But this is very much about MYOB desktop, and I'm not going to be talking about the pros and cons of MYOB cloud-based software. We don't use it, we don't support it. MYOB were too slow, too big, and too silly to give what their clients really needed them, to give their small business customers what they really needed to support their accountants in the way that they need to support them. And I mean, if anyone from MYOB's listening, I mean no disrespect, and please don't sue me. It's just personal preference of mine. I've been burnt too many times by MYOB, so that's why we're Xero fans. And by looking at the number of Xero users, we aren't alone in being fans of Xero. So the Xero story. Just wanted to really quickly tell you, there was a great guy called Rod Drury who got together with a few mates, and so the legend goes, in New Zealand, where MYOB used to dominate New Zealand, but MYOB had a bit of a change there in relation to some software that they were using to support the accountants over there, and they insisted that the accountants do some upgrading. This caused a whole bunch of accountants to get a little bit disgruntled, and there was a guy called Rod Drury who allegedly went fishing with his mates one day, and they all sat around, as you do, and stared up into the sky around a campfire, I imagine, and said, what if we had a perfect world, what would we want an accounting software to do? What would it look like if we started from scratch? And from that moment on, they built Xero exactly the way that they thought it should be built. So it didn't have any other systems that it used to rely on, like MYOB have to contend with. It was just built from scratch to be a perfect experience for the users and for the accountants and bookkeepers who serve it as well. That's how Xero sort of started. It's really important for me to tell you, I don't have any alliance or commercial attachment to Xero. This isn't a Xero endorsed webinar. I haven't advised Xero that I'm even conducting this webinar. If there's anyone from Xero listening, hi, you know I love you. Please don't sue me either for using the brand in the wrong way. But I don't have any alliance or commercial attachment to Xero. Accountants that put their clients onto Xero get a 20% discount off the rack rate, so I encourage you to take advantage of that and to negotiate that through with your accountant. But that generally just covers some administration tasks that they need to do if they're running your Xero. We don't mind whether clients have their own Xero or whether we do it for them, but that's the only commercial attachment that we might have to Xero. So this is a completely independent advice, is basically what I'm saying. Okay, so Xero, why do we love it? First in the market, it's the disruptor. Lovely picture of the Hulk there. Thank you, Honey May, who put these slides together for me. You know, if you're first in the market, like your Ubers or like your Apples, those guys, Apple iPhones, they're the disruptors in the market, and Xero really were the disruptor. Now, you know what? Even first in the market might not be that accurate, because MYOB did have a cloud-based application. It didn't quite work. And their Sasau might have been the first in the market, and QuickBooks probably had something that was cloud-based as well. But in terms of the complete experience and the ability to deliver what they need to deliver to accountants, to bookkeepers, and to you, the clients, then Xero are absolutely a disruptor in this market. MYOB, by comparison, was kind of old because it had market domination, certainly in New Zealand and Australia, not in other countries. That's where QuickBooks dominated, but MYOB had domination in Australia and New Zealand. They were quite old. They were quite slow because and I understand why they were slow, because they had a lot of legacy systems. So the way that things had been done, the old coding that they had to focus on, and they're very much focused on the dollars. And that wasn't their fault. Their main shareholder sold out of MYOB and is now one of the main shareholders of Xero, from what I understand. The MYOB then got sold to venture capitalists, who then a UK company bought it. It's now come back to Australia and it's now being listed again. So it needed to be focused on the dollars from the shareholders' perspective, where, as we know from our experiences with companies like Amazon and Facebook and other startup companies, often the dollars follow the user experience. So Xero was all written around let the users use it, let them love it, and then we'll worry about making money on it in the long term, because everyone will love us by then. And that's what disruptors do. They don't focus on the dollars. Whereas because MYOB was much older, they had to focus on the dollars. There are others, as I said, in the market. There's Intuit QuickBooks, Sage, there's FreshBooks. There's also the company Reckon have a version of, kind of a hybrid version of cloud. And these are all cloud-based accounting systems as well. So, Xero certainly isn't the only one in the market, because clearly this is the way to go. My only comment to this is that they probably have a lack of users and support. So if you can find an accountant that specialises in Sage and Sasso, and I did come across one, so they do exist. If you can find an accountant that's willing to help you out with FreshBooks or even Intuit QuickBooks, that's great. I just think there's a lot less of them out there. There's a lot more people that will support you with the market domination, the market leaders of Xero. So Xero itself is very much centred around the bank statement as the single source of truth outside the business. And Xero are very big on this, because they're saying it doesn't matter what the bookkeeper puts in the books. It doesn't matter what the accountant does to the books. Xero is centred around getting information directly from your bank and putting it into your accounting system. And then sure, you reconcile it and you code the accounts and you do whatever. But because it's got that single source of truth in there, it gives Xero financial accounts the sort of validity, or it validates them automatically to other users of financial statements like banks. And I think what we're going to see in the future is you giving permission to financial institutions who can then just go into your Xero version, because it's centered around the bank statement as your single source of truth, and they will just be able to offer you a loan or do whatever they need to do automatically. So, I mean, you'd have to give them access to do that, but they, no more filling out reams of paper and forms, because there is a single source of truth, which is the bank statement. The thing about Xero is that they were all about, their whole philosophy was about doing the basics really well. So, and then what they do is use experts to add extra functionality where you might need to. So often we see industry-specific software packages that come up, whether you're a tradie or whether you're into finance or borrowing, whatever sort of business you're in, there's usually some sort of industry expert that'll give you some software that will be able to help you do what you do better. Now, what the traditional way of doing things were, build a general ledger accounting system off the back of that. It was usually not very good. Accountants hated it, and but you needed it. So what Xero said was, let's just build a basic system that does the accounting really, really well, and we'll use add-on partners to add functionality to that. So here's some examples of add-on partners that they use. So Trade Gecko is an inventory management system. Receipt Bank is a system that helps you manage your receipts automatically. You just take a photo of them and it codes them automatically. Workflow Max is a job cost system. Workflow Max is actually slightly different to an add-on partner. It's actually owned by Xero as well, and that's because it's the system that the accountants use. And there's also Then, which does your point of sale. But is there just a few? Because MYOB Online has these, and so does QuickBooks and FreshBooks as well. No, they're not the only ones. And this is just a tiny snapshot of the partners. There are literally hundreds, if not broaching into the thousands now, of add-on partners that do with Xero. If you have an industry-specific account, like systems such as, so if you're a lawyer, you might have Leap, then I really much encourage you to ask them if they have a link to Xero. I'm sure they do, because Xero was made with open architecture, and everyone now ago, but now everyone links in with Xero. So again, this was about improving communication. So from the small business through to the accountant, through to the bookkeeper. So maybe that could be a triangle or a circle even, because the information just keeps going around between those three people, the advisors of your business. Now you can add other advisors as well. You might have a business coach that will be in that circle as well, that you might want to give access to your accounts. But what it's doing is improving communication with your advisors. You don't have to give them special VPN access. You just have to give them access to your Xero version, and you can control what they can do, read only, or whether they need to transact, and the sort of reports that they can see as well. So you can control all of that, but what it's doing at the end of the day, it's improving communication with your advisors, and that has to be a good thing to help you and your small business. Okay, so this has also got some handy storage for business documents. So this is often overlooked with Xero, but Xero has a number of areas, but specifically this is just the generic files area that you can store business documents in. So I entirely recommend that if you don't have any other sort of document management system, that you just put that through. Now, invoices, that's accounts payable invoices, so where you owe the money, they're often better stored on the actual invoice itself, and I won't go into specifics or details. We'll be here all day, but this is just general information on, plan view mock-ups and maybe cost sheet for some parts. That's actually a spreadsheet. They're just storing that on the cloud within your Xero. So nice and handy storage there. Get that for nothing extra. Now, single ledger is compelling. So again, this is a slide from Xero, but it's talking about single ledger, and that all that means, or nutshell that into just saying that everyone's working on the one set of books. And when we take your one set of books that's there, and we can apply all of our general ledger, financial accounts and tax returns off that one set of books, which saves time, which saves you money, and that's the important thing. Backups I've talked about, that they're automatically backed up into the cloud, so it doesn't matter what device that you're accessing Xero through, it sits in the cloud and it's automatically backed up all the time, real time, not once a day, not once every hour. Every time you make one click on it, that's backed up. And the dashboard. So the dashboards is a great, very handy area. And now I understand MYOB has a really cool dashboard as well. Sometimes it's just what you get used to. That's the MYOB Live version, not the existing MYOB version. But this version will just tell you, and you can completely configure this, but this just tells you in a snapshot how much money you've got in the bank right now, which is important. I go in every day and look at this. I say, hey, do I have a cash flow problem? No, I'm okay. Who owes me money in your account watch list? Your money coming in when that's due, and your money going out as well. And there's a few other things that you can put on that dashboard, but it's really handy from a management control perspective. I run this business, Scott Partners at accounting firm. I probably spend just 5 minutes in the morning having a quick look at my screen to see what happened last night, because your bank feeds come in, your bank transactions come in overnight. I can see what's happening, and then I log out. I don't need to, I focus on working the business rather than, accounting. So, you can do it from as little as 5 minutes a day. Absolutely. Now I get to the good, the bad, and the ugly side of things. So first of all, we'll start with the good. And this is a client of ours. It was a professional services firm, quite large in number, though they had 25 staff. And they were using MYOB when we went to them. So we would typically interact with them. We would go out there when they were good and ready. They'd done all their reconciliations for the year. And sometimes that was some months after the 30th of June. So it might be September, October. And they came to us with their little backup file, and they said, there you go, here it is. And I know that they had a full-time bookkeeper working on that within the business. That's all that they were doing. So they were it was a lot of very labour-intensive process. As I say, they were a fairly large business, so that they needed a full-time accountant in there doing what they needed to do. But we couldn't assist them, we couldn't be proactive. We'd see their accounts. By the time we'd finish what we needed to do and they'd answered all their queries, we're closer to Christmas time, and then we're trying to talk to them about things that happened 6 months ago, and they said, oh no, we've moved on from there. We did everything right. We did, when I say everything right, we made sure that their reconciliations were done. They had very good reconciliations, and as I say, they had a full-time bookkeeper on it. So everything was done right. Everything was done well in terms of the implementation. We did the implementation ourselves, and we did the training for them as well. So we made sure that they were fully trained. And those people that were impacted by the account, so certainly the owner, the CEO, and their practice manager, were brought up to speed as to what the sort of reports they could access and when they could access them. It went really, really well. It was an example of a good version, and they wouldn't be without anything else. From now on, we can give them real-time advice. We just log into their account. We can do more for them, and we can give them proactive advice as well for the first time, which is great. But the key thing here, that the lesson that we learned, was that it's not a replacement. Absolutely not a replacement. It's not a substitute. We'll just get a bit clever with our slides. I hope that's all catching up for you on the speed. For training and for being able to be a good bookkeeper. And so I'll talk about that in our next case study, which came up, which was a printing firm. So here's one where we didn't have good communication with our client. We'd said to our client pretty much, okay, we want you to move to Xero. We think it's great. And our back office systems will be a lot quicker. We'll be able to give you more proactive advice, blah, blah, blah. And the printing firm was an old school printing firm, and they said, okay, not really sure what you're talking about, but if you think that's the best thing for us, then that's what we'll do. We did their conversion, and we thought we did some training and some transitional management with them to make sure that they knew what was happening and how they did it. Oh no. Then we had a look at their MYOB account, and we realised that they weren't actually getting in there, or the bookkeeper wasn't going in there and reconciling the bank statements. So when we asked them what was going on, they had to sheepishly confess that they didn't really like Xero, they didn't really understand it, and so they'd reverted back to using their MYOB desktop file. Now, they were very unhappy with us because of the fact that that didn't go as smoothly as that they had thought, and they felt that they had to revert back to their MYOB desktop version. And as a result of that, we lost a very long-standing client of the firm. So certainly this is just a bad, not the ugly version. It's because we lost a client. I'm sure that client is now on Xero. I hope they're happy with their existing account. And if they are listening today, please come back to you. We miss you. But we learned a lot from it. Now, this next lesson that we're going to talk to you about is that one of the key bad things that can go is that reconciliations need to be done. Now, what does that mean? It just means that we need to know things like your bank statements all accurately recorded through your accounting system. We need to know that your accounts receivable, your debtors all match up and are correct, and there's no old or wrong ones in there. And same with accounts payable and inventory. Have a look at the checklist at the end of this webinar, and I'll go into more detail on that. So, but reconciliations really need to be done. And there needs to be some sort of transition management here done, because, just because we put Xero in doesn't automatically mean that, if you haven't done your reconciliations or you haven't really got people on board, that they're going to be on board just because you go live with your Xero. Now, you might think, oh, it's just accounting software. Is it really that important? Well, this next case study was the ugly case study. So this is a manufacturer that we had as a long-standing client of ours. And we took around about 6 months to finalise their Xero conversion because of a number of complexities that happened, because they didn't have the reconciliations all done before we entered into the conversion. In the end, it cost us at least $20,000 worth of time to fix up their reconciliations in Xero. And it wouldn't have cost us anywhere near that time to fix up everything in MYOB and then convert, but we didn't do it that way for a number of different reasons. It ended up costing us, as I said, the process took us around about 6 months, which was a lot longer. It should only take a couple of weeks, and it probably cost us $20,000 in time that the client shouldn't have had to pay for and didn't pay for. And at the end of that, we also lost the client. So it wasn't even a happy ending for us. Certainly that was our most ugly experience in relation to Xero. With Xero, the bank account is the key. Making sure that the bank account is fully reconciled before you put it into Xero is the only way that you can move forward. In MYOB, the bank account's not necessarily the key. I mean, you don't have to reconcile your bank account all the time, every day or every month. You just have to enter transactions as they go along, and then at some point you might want to do a bank reconciliation, just matching your bank statement to what your accounting records say. Well, that's opposite in Xero. Everything is centered around the bank statement. So as I say, it's your single source of truth. Xero, we're just sort of getting into the summary part of the presentation now, so I'm just summarising the key points for you. So it's centered around a bank statement. Xero use add-on partners for added power. So as I say, if you have a look on the Xero website, you'll see hundreds, if not thousands, of different specialty vendors who have systems that will add on to or bolt on to Xero to enhance your experience of Xero where you need something. But I've just got little brackets there, but remember that's an added cost. So, you know, if you're going to be using something like Salesforce, that could be many hundreds of dollars a month extra, even though it integrates perfectly with Xero. So just something to be mindful of when you're doing your analysis of whether it's a good thing to go to Xero or not. Also remember is the cost is per business. Now in MYOB desktop, we've had a number of clients and other people come up to us and say, yeah, but you know what, we've got 3 or 4 different businesses that we're running off just our one license from MYOB. That doesn't work in Xero. You have to use separate licenses for separate businesses, which means that can multiply your costs a little bit. So if you might be a $50 a month Xero subscriber, but if you've got 3 or 4 different businesses, then that can quickly get to $200 a month. I still think it's chicken feed in relation to the power of information, the cost savings that you may get with your bookkeeping and your accounting, and really the ability that you'll have to level up as a small business. I'm not exaggerating. I think this is what that software can do for you. And I'm not alone in that thought. So, a final summary, you will breathe a sigh of relief. There's the quick transmission of data. That's what this is all about. Getting that data, because it's all stored in the cloud in a single place, it's just everyone accessing that data, means a quicker transmission of data, which means no more files backwards and forwards, bouncing around the place. Ease of access. You can go to your friend's house, your library, anywhere you can access the internet, whether it's a different country, different state, you can access your Xero or any cloud accounting, but specifically, or any cloud system, but specifically you can access Xero. Better information. So because it's all centered around that bank statement and because of the way that the information is presented, it gives you a better look at there's some great reports that you can get out of Xero. Again, I'm not going a deep dive into Xero itself, but there's some great reporting that you can do in Xero, which will give you the information that you need to make better, timely, fact-based decisions about your business to improve your profits and save you, increase your sales and save your costs. Xero is the first in the market. It's the disruptor. It's the one that we hate to use the term sexy when it comes to accounting software because it's not really believable, but they were first in the market, which makes them, there's a lot of raving fans out there. There's a lot of raving fans out there because like Apple and other people who are disruptors in industry, they've got a culture of innovation. They know they have to do things better. They have to do things quicker and they have to delight their customers much more than the incumbents. So they do have a culture of innovation, which means, when they first came out, they didn't have payroll. And we all said to them, but we can't compete. We can't tell our clients to move off MYOB because you don't have payroll. They said, all right, we'll put payroll in, but understand that we're truly a global-based system. So we'll have to do that for each market because Australian payroll is different to, say, the Philippines payroll or the US payroll. So just in terms of tax tables and things. So they have a culture of innovation. They've listened and they've changed their product to meet our needs. And if it's what your accountant recommends, then I really think you need to move to Xero. If they're saying go to Xero, all our clients, we say move to Xero because it will save us time, which saves you money. We would rather spend time giving you quality advice than journaling from one set of books to another set of books. And if you like your system more than you like what your accountant's recommending, then I totally recommend that you change accountants because you're not getting the value out of your accountant. Okay, so key points. It's not a bookkeeping substitute. Now, I didn't mention this, but in the bad case study we had, and this is true of a number of different implementations that we've done, the clients of the opinion that because it's now cloud-based that they can do the bookkeeping even though they were using a bookkeeper before and don't have a lot of idea about the system itself. If you weren't a bookkeeper on MYOB, then you're not a bookkeeper on Xero. Now, Xero might have some great ways and easy ways to enter information and to keep all your books up to date, and some of those might be very easy to do, even if you're not a bookkeeper. I'm just suggesting to you that if you weren't a bookkeeper before you went live, you're not going to be a bookkeeper after you get live. So it's not a bookkeeping substitute. We still highly recommend that you use a bookkeeper because you've got better things to do in your business, unless your business is that of bookkeeping. Training is needed. So, you know, I spoke with one of our clients the other day. They've just finally gone on to Xero after a number of years of us prompting and prodding them. And I said to them, how are you enjoying the Xero experience? I said, well, to be honest with you, Scott, we haven't even logged in yet because we're not sure. So we didn't do that implementation. Their bookkeeper PA did their implementation. But I would really say you need training, not just for bookkeepers. It's the training for the people that are actually going to use the system, the people that are invoicing off the system, the people that are reconciling the debtors and making sure that people are paying you. So training is needed. It's not that easy to understand things. You need some change management. Depending upon the size of your organization, you really need to consider, is everyone on board with this? Does everyone know why we're changing from MYOB to Xero? Has everyone been explained the benefits? Because humans don't like to change. They don't like things that are not you know, they're out of the ordinary, and we understand there's some very good physiological reasons for that, as well as emotional reasons. So some sort of change management is needed, even if it is just on your implementation checklist, to make sure that you've covered it off, you've explained the reasons to your team why you're doing it, and then crack on. Don't just change from MYOB to Xero and tell your team, hey, I've changed from MYOB to Xero. That will be a problem, I promise you. And reconciliations are absolutely vital. So you need to make sure that you've got reconciliations done. If you haven't got your reconciliations done, then that will cause, as I said, could be a $20,000 problem because it's so much harder to do it after you've moved to Xero than before you move to Xero. So the reconciliations between your bank account, between your accounts receivable, your accounts payable, please have a look at the free checklist resource. I've got all the details in that in relation to reconciliations, which I understand is accounting speak. So. All right, so we'll come to the close to the end of the presentation now. Now's the time that I would love to answer any questions that you might have, specifically in relation to whether your MYOB, you know, whether you should move from MYOB to Xero, or in relation to the process that's about. So, has anyone got any questions out there? Now would be the time. Just put them in your chat box, and Kerry will manage those for me, and we'll see if there's any points. What I might do while we're waiting for any questions is we will go on to give you the link for some of our free offers. So this is the link to our checklist. So write it down. If you're listening to this broadcast, then please feel free to, we're going to keep this link live. It's just a link to a page on our website. So we've shortened it for your use using Bitly. So write that number down. I know it's a little bit confusing. I promise you it's not spam. It's not going to cause you any issues. It's just going to be linked to our free checklist that you can use. Okay. Still looking if there's any questions. Nothing yet. So I'll go on to my limited offer. Okay, now this is a limited offer. So if you are listening to this on the replay, please give us a call and just see whether it's still available, because we're only doing this for the first 5 people. And that is a free conversion from MYOB Desktop to Xero for our new clients. So we're limiting this to just the first 5 because there's a lot of complexities involved, and I'll explain that on our next webinar if you like, but you'll see the checklist as well. There's a lot of complexities involved in moving you from one system to the next. If you're a large business with multiple employees, this can be a considerable amount of time. Now, some firms charge anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 to do your conversion. That's even using JetConvert to actually do the physical dumping of data from your MYOB system through to Xero. So it still could be around about a $5,000 to $15,000 worth of savings. Now we're going to do this. The reason we're going to do this is because doing a MYOB to Xero conversion is a great way for us to know what our clients, what our clients do, how they go about doing what they do, and a great way for us to get to know new clients. So it's for new clients. So if you come on board as a client of Scott Partners, as I say, we're a specialist in small business, focusing around the professional services, but we do have clients across every single industry. Xero specialists, and we can do this conversion for you absolutely for free. All that we ask is that you do become a client for us. If you're interested in that offer, go to our website. That's scottpartners.com.au and book in for a free discovery session. So there's plenty of links on there to book in for a free discovery session. You can call, if you prefer, our reception, 1300 365 455. That's 1300 365 455. They'll explain the offer and also get you to book in for a free 30-minute discovery session to see how we might be able to be of assistance to you. So we're certainly not saying, hey, become a client and then we'll do it for free. It's very much you have to be comfortable with us as well. And we service clients all throughout Australia, and we'll also even service clients out through in other jurisdictions as well. So please give us a call if that's of interest to you. Now, what I'd like to do, because there aren't any questions that are showing up on my dashboard. That's right, isn't it, Kerry? Everyone's happy. Last opportunity to ask me some questions, but I will also stay here after the webinar, and if you do have any questions that you didn't want to publicly broadcast, that's fine. I'll stay here for around about 2 or 3 minutes until I see that you've all left the room and answer any questions as well for you. So the next Xero webinar, so we're doing a number of different webinars on a number of different topics, but there's another Xero webinar coming up in a couple of weeks. I'll advertise that broadly as well as we've done this one. And I know some of you have subscribed to automatically get the links to this next webinar. It's going to be called Conversion Tips and Traps for the Unwary. So we're going to go into a bit more of a deep dive about what can go wrong, what sort of things you need to look at when you're doing a MYOB to Xero conversion, because you can absolutely do that yourself and save the $5,000 to $15,000 in accounting and IT costs. If you want to do that yourself, no problems. Please tune in for our next Xero webinar, Conversion Tips and Traps for the Unwary. And in future Xero webinars, we'll go into more about using it. So at that point, we'll assume that you've all moved to Xero, and then we'll go into the deep dive about certain aspects of Xero that are going to make it great for you. I've got a question here. Can you type the checklist here as it's blurry on the screen and you can't see it? Absolutely, Christine. I can do that. We'll do that. I'm doing that right now. I just need to go back. So what I can do, just pardon me, I'll go back to this previous slide. And it is http://bit.ly/2AZBA38. Right. That went up to you. Oh, and Kerry's going to be looking at that as well. All right. Well, I won't keep you all any longer. As I say, I'm going to stay around a little bit longer in the room if you do have any further questions. Thank you so much for your attendance today. If you're listening to this on the play, please give us a call if you're interested in taking us up on doing a conversion for you for absolutely for free, as I say, to get to know you as a new client even better, and have a look out for that next webinar of ours, which is Conversion Tips and Traps for the Wary. Wary. Okay, thank you so much for attending. I'm Scott Trevethan. I'm from Scott Partners, and this was our webinar on Are You Ready to Move from MYOB to Xero? So thanks very much for attending, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.